Jenna, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yay. So Jenna is, even though this says 10 because we're celebrating 10 years of fully scripted series in Worship Design Studio, Jenna is more than 10,
I am more than 10,
but
yes.
but less than no, more than 10 years younger than me.
Yes. That's okay. Yep. We're an intergenerational team here in the Worship Design Studio.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenna, and happy birthday. We are so glad that you are on this planet. I am super glad. I cannot say how much we in the Worship Design Studio depend on Jenna and her incredible talents. So many talents. So thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Jenna.
Marcia.
All right. Well, friends, we are celebrating, I can't even believe it, 10 years of fully scripted series this Lent, because 10 years ago, I offered my first fully scripted series. Before that, Worship Design Studio had been going for 5 years before that, but we had done what I call DIY series, a very different format, lots of ideas for every service for a series and a series theme and that kind of thing, but we did not do scripts. I had people who were asking me to do that for a long time, and I was resistant at first because I hope still that you are learning the process of designing um, sensory rich worship, besides just using our fully scripted series so that you can do it yourself. But I did learn 10 years ago that if I do fully scripted series and give you all these ideas for sensory rich worship, that was a great way for you to learn it as well. And so I've been doing that ever since. And now we have 10 years worth of worship series. That is, just think of that, friends. That's a career's worth of worship series that you can have as a subscriber to Worship Design Studio. Well, thank you so much for joining me live today, or if you're watching the recording, great to see you in this mysterious time and space continuum. But so glad that you are with us and celebrating with us. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get started because we have a lot to do. So, folks are here from all over the country and other countries, and I'm so excited to have you all. So this webinar is, yes, to celebrate 10 years of Worship Design Studio series, but we're going to dive deep into a couple of them. But suffice it to say that if you're still wondering what you're going to do for Lent, thinking about what you're going to do for Lent, we've got you covered. You've lots of choices, and you can get to all of them at worshipdesignstudio.com/series. And you can dive deep into each one of these themes. Each one of these has a page and we'll tell you all about it. But I'll share a little bit with you this morning about that. So that's what we're going to do first, a brief look at Lent, the theological themes in Lent, in the season, liturgical season of Lent, and the possibilities of fully scripted series from Worship Design Studio. I'll do a brief overview of that just to give you a little taste. Then we're going to dive deep into one of the older ones, not super deep, but just a little bit more to encourage you, because if you follow the lectionary religiously, as we say, you might be interested in what we have for year C for Lent, which I did 3 years ago during year C. And then we're going to do a deep dive into the new series, which is a non-lectionary series, but it has a deeply important theological theme for our time right now. And I'll get into all the materials included. So basically the Get Ready webinar for that series. So a two-part kind of thing we're doing this morning. Well, let's take a look at the season of Lent and the theological themes there. First of all, let me just say briefly that the history of the season of Lent was that it was developed to be a time of preparation for catechumens for baptism on the Easter Vigil. So late, deep in the night, on Easter Eve, before sunrise, before cockcrow on Easter morning, this was the time par excellence for the early church to be baptizing folks, because the theology of baptism, where we die to the old and are raised again to new life in Christ. What a magical, mystical, wonder and awe-filled thing that was to sort of project onto what our new series is. Um, that was for those early Christians to be baptized in the middle of the night, awaiting the sunrise on Easter morning. So that was the origins of the development of the season of Lent. And it wasn't until the 11th century when Ash Wednesday became mandated. And it was a time of monasticism, and there weren't a whole lot of, the early church was doing a ton of baptisms. And so it was really focused around that. But by the Middle Ages, we don't have a lot of baptisms, but we do have the process of bringing people back into the church that were lapsed Christians or ousted Christians. And so the season took on a more penitential kind of feel. But that was not the origins necessarily. It was education and preparation to become a Christian. So it was about Christian identity. It was about our identity in Christ and preparation for that new life. So lots of different theological themes that can come out of that history. And so let's take a look here. Of course, we could focus on preparation for baptism, journey to new life. And I'll show you what in the worship design studio we did specifically around that one. Claimed and named, adopted, washed, this identity piece. Who am I? And what are we doing? Who are we and what are we doing as Christians, as that call to be Christians, to follow Jesus? Lent also has this big journey theme of follower, path, wilderness wandering. There's a lot of self-reflection as it has developed even further over the centuries. And so that idea of a journey is very big in the Lent season. But also that sense of looking again at our lives, looking at repentance, that turning around, just taking stock of how we'd like to be better humans. That is also a very legit kind of theme to follow: conversion, change, turning around, new starts. So that is a very important piece of what Lent also offers. But if that's all we do, here's the point, is that if that's all we do every Lent, what are we going to give up? What are we going to sacrifice? What are we, if that's all we do theologically, then we are narrowing our theological uh, smorgasbord, let's say. The diet is narrowed in terms of exploring what Lent has to offer our Christian journey. So, getting right, healing, integrity, discerning next steps, these are all really good self reflective and community reflective kinds of things to do during Lent. And then, of course, there is that sense of slowing down, of contemplation, of more engaging more spiritual practices, perhaps more contemplative spiritual practices than we normally do. That kind of cocooning so that we might transform and become the creatures we are called to be. So, I mean, just rich, right? And I think this is why Lent was one of the first seasons to capture our liturgical imaginations, as Protestants especially, right? In my lifetime, in the mid 20th century, the liturgical renewal movement was really the thing that helped us to embrace the liturgical year even more as Protestants. I can remember the first Ash Wednesday service at my little church in Adrian, Missouri. And it was the first time we had done that. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is so Catholic, it felt very Catholic, but it is part of that early church, that development of the church over time. And so it is part of our tradition. It's just that we didn't have it for a long time. Those of you who are Methodists, John Wesley, really the only service in Holy Week he focused on was Good Friday, not Maundy Thursday or Holy Saturday or Easter Vigil. And so our repertoire has grown in the last few decades, and I think it has enriched us so much. But certainly these themes, theological themes for Lent, are such deeply human themes and important to our spiritual lives and our spiritual development. So, what I do as a curator of the Worship Design Studio is I take a look at these themes, these theological themes from Lent, things that are coming out of the lectionary, things that are happening in the world. And that's, of course, what you do as well. You discern all of those things, kind of the three-legged stool, and you say, what is the right thing to proclaim this year for this community in this moment in history? And friends, that is a big question for many of us right now. It feels like we are in a season of uncertainty, disruption, um, fear, perhaps, not knowing. So it's a really, really important time to discern how we will spend that Lent journey. So I'll share some of my thoughts with you today. And of course, you will make your own decisions based on your context, your community. So, friends, here are those 10. Oh my gosh, 10. I can't believe it. 10 fully scripted series for Lent that have developed over the last 10 years. It all started with Gifts of the Dark Wood, based on a book by a friend of mine, Eric Elnes. Eric and myself and my music collaborator, Chuck Bell, were doing a retreat. And it was based on Eric's book. And Eric's book, Gifts of the Dark Wood, is really about what are the gifts that we can find in those moments, perhaps like right now, where we're not sure where we're going, where perhaps we feel a little lost, where perhaps we want to get out of where we are as soon as possible. And what Eric says in this book is that they, even though we're in those places, sometimes we can get out of them sooner than or later, but oftentimes we have to reside there for a time. And there are gifts to be found there, gifts to be found in being lost a little bit, not knowing exactly our way. That's where the Spirit works and helps to open our eyes to possibilities we had not thought of before. And this theme really resonated with folks. I will tell you a memory um, that really helped me understand the power of offering these fully scripted series. I was living in Tahoe at the time when I first did this 10 years ago, and I went to a church on Maundy, Thursday. I had been out of town most of Lent, because at that time I was traveling a lot during doing consulting and that kind of thing, much more than I am now. But I was home for Holy Week, and I didn't have a particular place that I think I had just moved to Tahoe. I don't remember. Anyway, I just randomly chose a church to go to on Maundy, Thursday. I sat down, I picked up the worship guide, and they were doing the Maundy Thursday service for Gifts of the Dark Wood. And I I just start crying just thinking about it now. Um, it was the first time when I had randomly walked into a place that I didn't know was doing one of Worship Design Studio's series, and it just hit me that I get to be in ministry with so many of you in this way. And it really touches me, obviously. You all know I'm a crier. Those of you who have been around me know I'm a crier. Okay. Oh, yeah. So getting to be in ministry is so with you is is so touching to me. So thank you. Thank you for the privilege of that. So Gifts of the Dark Wood happened. Now, I tried to, without looking back, I tried to figure out what order these went in, and I couldn't, so I just let it go. But I'm going to tell you just a little bit about each one. Roll Down Justice. Uh, that one is focused on our baptismal rituals, our baptismal liturgy. And it is that nod to that theological theme of honoring our baptisms, renewing, reaffirming our baptisms, and Lent being historically that road on the way to baptism. And so Roll Down Justice goes through each parts of a baptismal liturgy. It's not the same for every denomination, but it is very close, my friends. We have an ecumenical standard. And so it goes through each one of those and connects that to who we are called to be as Christians in making the world a better place. So not just the personal kind of um, life in Christ through our baptism, but what our baptism calls us to in terms of being embodying justice in the world. It features the music of my friend Mark Miller, collaborator Mark Miller, and so there is a song. In fact, each one of the services is named after one of Mark's songs. It features the poetry, the prophetic, beautiful poetry of Bishop Luttrell Easterling. And so it's just a phenomenal series, wonderful to put together with Mark and with Bishop Easterling. And we have both a Lent version and an Easter season version of that, which actually can be an anytime version. And so, highly recommend at some point in the liturgical year for your community, focus in on what does it mean to be a baptized Christian? All right. So busy was one of my favorite ones to write, and I have a vision in my mind of sitting in my friend's little writing cottage on their farm in Northern California, writing this series about reconnecting with an unhurried God. And this really resonated as well. You see that empty chair, and it's that symbol, it's that anchor image of the invitation that God gives us to slow it down, girlfriend, for a little while, right? Slow it down. And, many of us in our culture wear busy, I'm so busy, like a badge of honor. And that is what society gives us big brownie points for, but it's not necessarily what feeds our spirit. And so this series is a wonderful one to remind ourselves to make time for God, right? So giving up in Lent can be giving up busyness as something to sort of reset our mindset around who we are and what we do with our time. Um, so Holy Vessels was another one that was really popular, using glass vessels that are broken, and then the beach glass, the pieces of broken beach glass that wash up on the shore as our anchor image. Holy Vessels is all about healing, about recovering. Um, so if your congregation is in the midst of needing to feel some healing, to think about healing, and even claim identity as a healing hub, like being a healing hub in your community. This is a really good one. So it talks about personal healing, but it also talks about social, emotional, physical, all of the different kinds of healing that we need. And so that one, the beach glass, I just love the image of the beach glass because it is trashed glass, and yet when it washes up on the beach, it has been tumbled into this beautiful piece. And so we can ask ourselves, even though we have been broken, how do we claim our belovedness, our beauty, our ability to offer our beauty to the world and be healers? So that's that one. Oh my gosh. All these are bringing back such amazing memories. Like that one is bringing back a memory of doing a photo shoot on the beach in Southern California, which reminds me, that we are praying and thinking about all those who have suffered greatly and will continue to suffer greatly, loss of homes, loss of life in Southern California. And so just thinking about where I was when I was creating these series and various things, I think about that photo shoot on the beach in Southern California, very, very near to where much of Southern California in that area was decimated. Listen is hearing that still small voice and finding your own. This is a wonderful one about, again, it is another one of those contemplative kinds of things. And what really strikes me in this one is that I created a series trailer that has at the beginning of it has, when your phone is on vibrate and you lost it and you're calling it to see if you can find it, and there's that little vibration that you're listening for, you're walking around the house going, where is it? Where is it? And that's kind of the metaphor of the stance that Lent can do for us. And that is to put our antennas way up, listening for God, but also listening to that voice within us, finding our own voices. One of the things I love about this series is that we taught folks how to make folded little journals, painted and folded journals. And then we have a time of journaling and prayer stations in the sanctuary during this series. And then people write in those journals. And then what we do is we tell folks, try this out, write, have people write in there, but let them know they're going to leave it there in the pew or the seat. And then before the next week comes, you switch those around so people are both reading the prayers of others and also writing their prayer. It's such a very cool thing to do. So, and many people loved that aspect of it. So, listen, all right, let's go back over to looking for love in all the wrong places. This was a fun one to put together because I use that metaphor of those Scrabble letters, like trying to spell out the things that we want in our lives, looking for things. But looking for love in all the wrong places is about how we get distracted by things that are not important, right? And we're looking for love, and I'm a country music fan, so of course I loved that. But it really was a fun series, and that Scrabble board and creating these large Scrabble letters with love on it and focusing on more love in this world, and how we look for love in the right places and what Jesus says is the right place, the right way to love. So that was a wonderful one. I'm going to go back over to the right on your screen, entering the Passion of Jesus, picturing ourselves in the story, the passion, entering the Passion of Jesus. I will always remember this series as the one where we got interrupted in the middle of it with lockdown. Um, and so I think probably in the next couple of years, we're going to really refocus on that because I don't think people got a full experience of that unless they did it in other years more recently. But that whole idea, I wrote monologues for different characters in famous artwork of the Holy Week story. And so basically, this is a Lent full of Holy Week. Many people lament that their members don't come to Holy Week services. They go from Palm Sunday to Easter. And so I made a whole Lent series that would take people through the events of Holy Week. And I wrote monologues about characters, and there's artwork that goes with it. And oh, it's just such a wonderful thing to really think about the people who are there. What if I was there? How would I have reacted? What would it have meant to be in person with Jesus? And so it's really a beautiful series, and I hope that if you got interrupted, maybe do a redo and do it fully so that you can do it. I think it's been many years now. It's been 5 years now since that happened. And so, yeah, wonderful. All right. So, what are you up to is what we did last year. Instead of giving something up for Lent, what are we up to in the name of Jesus? And as Christians who follow Jesus, what is Jesus asking us to be up to? And so that was a fun one with the imagery of the hot air balloons and some of those metaphors from what actually makes hot air balloons go as an example of how we fill our lives and fill up with the energy that we need to do the things that we need to be up to. So let's see. I think I've gotten to all of them except for good enough, and we're gonna good enough, and then the new one, Purveyors of Awe. I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into good enough because that is our electionary year C choice. And so let's just take a brief look at and remind ourselves what that is. If you are someone who has not done good enough, did not do that 3 years ago, wow, it was such a wonderful series that helped us to deal with our perfectionist culture. So let's take a look. This is based on and inspired by the book by Kate Bowler and Jessica Ritchie called Good Enough. 40-ish devotions for a life of imperfection. And so the series about embracing the imperfections of life and faith. Let's take a look at the trailer. So that message of stop trying to climb the ladder of success as defined by society and tend the life that you have. This is um, Kate Bowler's deep message, and it really resonated with a lot of folks. Um, I just wanted to pull some thank you notes that we got um, after that series. We are loving our walk through Kate Bowler's book, Good Enough. Thank you, Marcia. We met on Zoom every Monday, plus our worship has been rich and well attended. The kids love the ladder, more about the ladder in a moment, and add something to it every Sunday. We are so grateful. Another person says, we have loved utilizing your materials for our seasonal worship. They have made a huge difference for us. Everyone is very touched by and deeply connected with the Good Enough series for Lent that we used this year. Such material will resonate with us for years to come. And then finally, Good Enough was a powerful series. The community received it, embraced it, and its teachings became life and redemption during our devotional gathering. Thanks, WDS. Thanks, Kate and Jessica. Thanks be to God. So you can see people resonated with it. I do want to say that it is a challenge, we found out, to the perfectionists in our midst. I will say that we got some feedback through email or on the website of people who said that they're perfectionists, said, oh, that's just good enough. That's for slackers, right? Which is a perfect example of what we do to each other around perfection. Life is not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. We are not perfect. We cannot live up to these standards of perfection. And many of us who grew up with that, who have that um, tendency to perfection. Hi, I'm a card carrying, recovery from perfection. It's just we can't live up to it, and so it can be a real source of. So it doesn't mean that we don't strive. It doesn't mean that we try to do things well um, to the best of our ability, but it is interesting that the folks who are perfectionists had, it's a challenge, and you have to unpack that in your sermons. You have to unpack that and notice that, right? But for most people who are like, oh, heck yeah, my life is imperfect, really resonated. So let's take a look at the ladder garden that we're talking about is taking a ladder. This is an example of my example that I created at my spouse's church, Good Enough. And so you take the ladder, the metaphor being climbing ladders of success, and you make it into a garden and you just tend the garden that's right there in front of you instead of climbing the ladder. Again, based on that book, and then scripts with everything you need, you adapt for your context. Such um, a fun children's time. I got to lead all the children's time at my spouse's church. And here are some pictures, again, because this is an older series, great for everyone who does this now. You have some examples because people did very different things with their ladders. So here's some, I just pulled some of the pictures that people posted on the website. And you can see they did very different things that fit their space. And I loved those good with the lights in them. That's very cool. Here's a couple more different ways to do it. This was a couple of examples from Palm Sunday where I put lots of poems in there. All right, friends. So one thing I want to share with you quickly, and that is in our website. Um, it's really fun to do an older one. I know everybody seems to want to do the brand new one. That's great. But it's also wonderful when you do an older one because, as many of you know who have used our series, people create other things besides what we've created. And so with an older one, we have whole bunch of extra materials that that Worship Design Studio members made, and we upload those. And so you have a ton of stuff that, for the new one, you'll just be starting to do that, which is awesome. But those of you who are thinking about a choice, not doing the new one, good enough is a wonderful one to do. And especially those of you who really love to use the lectionary ones. I will tell you, friends, that I will have, I'm working on the Easter season right now. I will have all three cycles of the Revised Common Lectionary in fully scripted series as of the completion of my new Easter season series, which is Lectionary Year C, and then I will have all of them. So another reason to celebrate. This is a big year. That all of that will happen in the same time. All right, friends. So I want to entertain any questions that you might have about our older series before I head to Purveyors of All. I do want to say that Jenna has been booted off of her internet where she is and has not been able to come back. So I'm going to look at the Q&A. Stephen is asking about a discount. Ooh, to become a subscriber for those who participate today. Oh, we just might. Yes, we will. And we'll send that out for those of you who are not subscribers, we'll send that out in an email with the recording. But also, I want to say that all of our Lent series, if you buy them a la carte, have a 10% discount because we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. And so that's my little gift for everyone. If you're not able to afford a subscription right now, and you want to buy a la carte, then we have a little discount for you there. And it's right there if you go to worshipdesignstudio.com/series. I see Michael asked, Gifts of Darkwood seems like a timely theme as well. It does. It really, really does. So I would recommend looking deeper at that one. Those of you who are subscribers, of course, you can go into all of these and actually look at all of the resources there. You can look at the Get Ready webinars. Actually, if you're not a subscriber, go to the landing pages for each one of these series, and many of those have the Get Ready webinar on it. So are these all online and virtual, or are they real resources? Well, they're real resources in that they exist in reality, but they're all digital downloads. So if that's what you're asking, they're all digital downloads. And so when you purchase any of these, you get an email, a confirmation email with a link to access those materials. And I want to say, friends, we continue to have this weird thing where the receipt is sent, but the confirmation email gets sent to your spam. So always, 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 if you're expecting something from us, check your spam or junk, because those things, as soon as you purchase it, you get it right away, immediate access and download. Okay, so let's see if I see anything else. Oh, I see that there's a lot of people who are doing different things. Oh, Jen, you're doing, this will be your seventh one, Worship Design Studio series. I love it. And then some people are doing good enough, especially those of you who are a part of our Worship Design Studio planning retreat, which is a 3-part series this year. You have access to good enough. And so there'll be a lot of people doing that good enough series as well. All right, friends, let's move on to this deep dive into our newest series, which I'm very, very excited about. And that is called Purveyors of Awe, Elements for Curating a Life of Spiritual Depth. Oh, so my friends, this a little bit of background on this. I have been researching elements for curating a life of spiritual depth for a very long time, for years, actually. I've been teaching it in seminary courses, especially as it relates to how do we as the church reach out as spiritual leaders to a wider community, some of whom will never walk in the doors of our church. And so I was trying to research and look for elements that weren't necessarily churchy words or theological terms, but had a lot of spiritual depth and connected to our Christian story as well. And so this is a dream come true here to actually do a series based on this research that I've been doing. And this is why, and I'll tell you a little bit about this in just a moment. This is why I created a much, um, this, ooh, hit it's not going to show you because of this. I'll figure out how to show you that. Well, you'll see the cover in a slide in a moment. But it's an actual book. It's an actual study guide, a guided study and journal that I created, much more substantial than our study guides that we usually do for series because it is based on the research that I've been doing. So, Purveyors of Awe. Let's take a look at the 1 minute trailer so you can get a taste, a sense of it, and then we'll dive in. So that was the question I asked myself this year. And what is the antidote for anxiety, for an age of anxiety? Because I think that is one of the major factors in the decision of what do we do this year for Lent. And so what the research uh, showed me that I did was that these elements under the umbrella of awe, which beauty, wonder, curiosity, meaning, delight, connection, self-giving. I don't know if I said them all, but those are, yeah, I think I got them all. That these actually have, when we do practices of these things, we actually are addressing well-being. So it could be elements for curating a life of well-being. And I think at this moment, that is something that is deeply, deeply important. And that is tending to the well-being of ourselves, of our communities, and of the greater community. Because without well-being, we don't have the energy, we don't have the wherewithal to make a difference in the places and with the things that we really, really need to make a difference in right now. And that is advocacy of the most vulnerable, caring deeply. So it really is about well-being. It is spiritual depth, but I equate that to well-being. So let's take a look here. Our anchor image is the camera lens, which is on the logo, the camera, because we're looking through the lens of awe to see how we can deepen our spiritual well-being. And so, what you might do is on our Pinterest page, we have all kinds of examples of displaying vintage cameras. So you might start right now asking your parishioners who has vintage cameras that you would be okay with loaning us on the Sunday mornings of Lent so that we could have this display that reminds us that we're looking through the lens of awe at elements for curating a life of spiritual depth and well-being. So the camera lens is a big metaphor, but it's also something we can do together as small groups. And so we have put resources about photography as a spiritual practice. And so many have easy access to cameras, right? Whether that's our phones or whether we actually have actual cameras. But looking through the lens, capturing moments that fill our spirits, that is the essence of being purveyors of awe, and encouraging others to do so. So the camera lens is a big anchor image, but also by association, then photos are also things that you can do to enhance this idea. And that is beautiful photos, photos filled with wonder, meaningful photos, curiosity photos. You know, all of these elements can be captured in photos. And we have lots of, on our Pinterest page, we have lots of pictures of things like this, strands of clipped photos. It kind of gives the essence of the old dark room. It's not old. Some people still do that, but it kind of has that essence of those pictures hanging from things in the dark room, processing and coming to life and revealing to us this beauty. And that's really at the heart of this series as well. Now, colors on I chose for the logo, I chose the sunset or sunrise, could be either one, colors, because it is that moment of the dawning or that waning light where we often get the most spectacular moments of, right? And so I chose those colors specifically. And so I went to the fabric store and saw, oh, what if I pull a little bit of fabric from each one of these colors and create some beautiful table setting with that? Um, the other thing is that each one of these elements are going to be big. That's what each Sunday is called. And so these vinyl lettering, I went to a women's conference this weekend, and on the walls, they had these temporary vinyl letters. So cool. And so little sayings about each one of these, you know, this is would be for the Curiosity Week, follow your curiosity. So lots of different ways to create interest visually with for this series. Okay, so of course, based on my research around awe and all of these elements and the substantial guided study and journal, that's the cover of it, and I'll tell you how you can access that very many different ways, including digital download, but also first time we have created, you can purchase this study in book form. All right, so as usual, scripts with everything you need, you adapt for your context. You can see more about this at worshipdesignstudio.com/awe if you're not a subscriber and don't have access to go into it right away. Remembering that as subscribers, you have access to all the materials all the time, everything. So, okay, let's look at what's in it. The overview, we usually do. It's a great thing for your whole team to read at the beginning. It just orients everybody to what it's about, what it is, what's inside of it, what the order of worship is, and the different elements. So that's always a great first step. And we always put the overview also on those landing pages. So as you're looking at what series you want to do, you can look at that and sort of see what's in there. The scriptures and synopses, the worship scripts. I'll talk more about those in just a moment. Children's time scripts, the communion script as usual. You can adapt it if you have weekly communion. You can adapt it for each one of the elements as you want. The sermon fodder, as we always do. Those of you who are new to Worship Design Studio, we do not write your sermons for you because that is a very personal act and it's very contextually based. You are the shepherd of this community and you're going to speak from you. Take all the information and we give you lots of information to help you and then you create it in the sermonic form. visual and media ideas. We have lots of them. The music documents and files I'm going to show you. We have arrangements of a couple of things that are unique for this series. The logo and trailer we give you, and then you can put your church's logo and information on those. And then, of course, small group suggestions. Lots there besides the guided study. So I'm going to give you a look at all of that. But first, I want to play this threshold opening sequence for Lent 1 so that you can get an idea of the musical opening, the feel of it. And I did Lent 1 because Lent 1, as I usually do, has a little more substantial speaking from the leader up front to orient people to what the theme is and why is it that we're doing this. And so I'm just going to give you this taste of that. Along the way, you'll see that we weave two songs in the threshold that talks about opening our eyes to see the with awe. And so very familiar. One is Silently Now I Wait for Thee, and the other is Open the Eyes of My Heart. And so Chuck Bell has written an arrangement that has a lot of underscoring in it, you'll see. And it has a beautiful sense of these familiar tunes, but with some beautiful arranging that helps it to feel fresh. And so as we go through this, sing when it's time to sing that for yourself as well. So let's just take a look. Here we go. Professor of Jewish mysticism and beloved author, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, said this: "Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed." My eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. And my eyes illuminate thee, Spirit. This Lent, we are invited to consider that one of the most important gifts we can give is to be purveyors of awe. A purveyor is someone who spreads or promotes a particular idea or who deals in a particular good. Our quest in this season is to promote a state of awe about the lives we've been given and revel in the sheer miracles of life that surround us. This is a spiritual journey in the tradition of biblical poets and of mystics. In our modern day, researchers who study well-being know that when we cultivate elements that deepen our awe of life, our appreciation for others, our dedication to the good, we live longer, more purposeful, and more joyful lives. In a time when we are exposed to the weight of the world by the messages around us, we will spend time on a journey of being exposed to the wonder of the world. Open the eyes of my Lord, open the eyes of my heart, I want to see you. I want to see you. The wide eye of wonder creates optimal conditions for awe. When we open our senses to the extraordinariness of the everyday ordinary, we have begun the journey to a deeper existence than what resides at surface level. Wonder can be an antidote to anxiety and depression, pulling us instead toward the awe-filled knowledge that there is more than meets the eye. There are solutions in the midst of problems, possibilities where we sense only dead ends. Let us rise in body and/or spirit and pray. Awe-inspiring God, we come together this day because we need to be reminded to see through the lens of wonder. Too often we relegate what is always amazing to what is ever familiar, forgetting that there are mysteries and miracles in the ordinariness of our lives. Open us to perceive anew. Inspire us to receive our surroundings with awe. Forgive us when we focus only on what's wrong rather than allowing the right and good to show us the way forward. Be with us on this journey as we seek again to marvel at your works. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Be still and know that God is God. Wonders never cease. God forgives us. Jesus embraces us. The Spirit enlivens us. We are whole. With awe, we accept this belovedness, and all God's people say, Amen. Amen. So, friends, that is really the essence of the whole thing. That we must focus on what's right with this world, even as we focus on what's wrong. And I know that it's a dance right now. It is a dance for all of us to figure out how to do both. And I think right now it's harder to focus on what's right. And so this series is an invitation to do that, not as a denial of what we need to do, but as a way of filling our spirits and our well-being. So Mark Hayes, another thread song that we have. Mark Hayes, dear friend of mine, and many of you know him as incredibly prolific composer, arranger. He lives here in Kansas City near me. And so I called him up and I said, Mark, you have this amazing anthem that's called You Are a Great and Awesome God. Can you just do a little arrangement of that so we could use it as a prayer response, a little bit slower, and in just this one portion of it? And this is a sung prayer response. I also have it as the Sanctus in the communion prayer. This is what that sounds like.
You are a great and awesome God. Your wonders we proclaim. You are our rock, our strength, our shield, from age to age the same. You forgive us all our sins. You transform us with your love. With joyful, grateful hearts we sing. You are a great and awesome God.
So that is what I call a thread song. So every prayer time begins with that introduction into prayer. And again, it's based on a very familiar tune, and so your folks will pick it up right away. So let's take a quick look at the actual materials in the website that you will access. Let me get here. Okay. All right. So scriptures and synopses overview, that is your first stop, right? I will post this Get Ready webinar right here so that you can refer to that and any of your team members can refer to that. This is where you download the entire series. So that is our file sharing space. You don't have to have an account or anything, but you just go there and then you hit that download button and it downloads everything. So that's one way to download in one fell swoop. Of course, you can download everything piece by piece. in each of these as well. Again, we have the free social media images done by wonderful Jennifer Yoakum, and she has created beautiful daily posts that you can use in social media related to the series. And then again, we will have people who are going to share different resources that they create that's different from ours or in addition to ours, and we will be uploading those there. So want to invite you to do that and to check that out. Now, each one of our scripts is in here, and for those of you who are new to Worship Design Studio, we have a PDF version that just will open up on your computer so you can just look at it there. That's a great way to just have a look at a glance look. You can also download that in the Word document form so that you can then adapt it. Remember, we like for you to adapt to your context. So there may be things in there that you decide to use or change. Make those words that I write feel right for you coming out of your mouth. We want you to adapt in whatever way. So each one of the scripts for each one of the services has both of those. Now, Lent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me just quickly show you. Let's look at Lent 1. And you saw that whole threshold moment, those very familiar tunes. If your pianist doesn't want to do or can't do Chuck's arrangement, no worries. Just use those, use the music from the hymnals of those songs. And if your musician is uncomfortable underscoring, just sing it when it comes up, right? So lots of ways to adapt. So opening hymns and songs, we make suggestions, of course, for a classical and modern or traditional and modern choices. What you do is you look at what we've chosen. If it feels like there is an unbalanced number of new songs and you need to do some more familiar songs, although I will tell you that we have chosen a lot of familiar songs for this series. You change as you need to, but we make suggestions for every service so that you have a starting place, right? I'm going to show you the children's scripts in just a moment. We have a contemporary reading in this series, so it will be a researcher about the topic. This one is wonder. And then we have the ancient reading. And this is usually a biblical poet, so a biblical Hebrew poet. So most of them are from the Psalms or Proverbs. I'm going to show you in the sermon fodder how we treat the inclusion of Jesus in this. So stay tuned. But that does happen in the sermon rather than in the scripture readings in our scripts. Now you can add a gospel reading if you want to, but I'll show you why in a moment. Then we have In Awe of Music, which is the anthem or the band song. And we always give you choices there, an anthem that we think would work well. Of course, look in your own repertoire and you will find things perhaps in your own repertoire that go with it. But always listen, they all have links to go listen to it and see what it is. And then if you need to change it, then sort of think along the same theological lines to go with the service. In Awe of the Word is what I'm calling the sermon in this, and I'll show you the fodder in just a moment. Approaching an Awesome God is those prayers. And so we have we've created for you what we call Visio Divina. And this is a time of showing photos. It's a video, it's a 1-minute video that we've put together that you can download and you can use ours, or you can make your own. So these are just photos of, for instance, in this service, it's all natural beauty, right? So wonder. In the Ash Wednesday service, we talk about that precious beauty between birth and death, because we're talking about from dust we came, and to dust we shall return. And so that Visio Divina is a minute full of beautiful faces of all ages, of all varieties. And so we have made these videos for you, but you can also see that as a project if you have youth, perhaps, that want to put together a video like that. But that's what starts the prayers, is this Visio Divina. We have some intercessory prayer, prayers of thanksgiving and care, continued prayers about specific entities of nature in your area. So we have a different focus on each one of these weeks. And then into silence, some silent prayer, For all these intentions, hear our prayer, awesome God, and let us pray the prayer Jesus taught us. So we've just given you kind of a structure in which to put all of your community prayers. And as usual, adapt as needed. If it's too different from what you do and you think it would be too much of a change, then you adapt and you do prayers the way that you usually do prayers, and maybe just with then the sung prayer response, right, from Mark Hayes that you heard. On the Sundays you have communion, you would put that in. We have offering, responding with awe, offering, doxology. I have written a special doxology to the tune Old 100th that ends our awe is yours, the 3-in-1. Closing song, you can see how familiar these are, so probably those will work for your congregation, I'm thinking. And then the benediction is always sort of a remembering of the mystic that we quoted in the beginning. And so they kind of bookend. So the mystic for this service was Rabbi Heschel. And so we re-familiarize ourselves with that we heard at the beginning, and then we invite people to be a purveyor of awe. And so that is a little bit different every week based on the word for the week, but a lot of it is a familiar cadence, so you'll get used to that. All right, so that is an example of one of the scripts. Those of you who have used my services before know that we don't reinvent the wheel every week. We use the same structure and then change the various words and things to go with that week. Now, let me give you an update, friends. As of today, which is February 11th, I am still in production for my Holy Week service because I am creating a very special kind of thing that will incorporate all of these elements alongside the story of Holy Week. So connecting those elements to the story of Holy Week in an experience that you can create that could either be a service or it could be a come and go walk through kind of experience that you will have a fun time creating. Get the help of your youth to help and many people to help you create different places in the church, and it'll be a walk through experience with some lighting, perhaps some candles, some that kind of thing, ending up in the sanctuary. So I want it to be an awe-filled experience. So we're not just talking about awe, we're actually practicing and having an awe-filled experience through this. And so that will be ready for you before Lent begins for sure, sometime in the next couple of weeks, because I'm starting production on the Easter season series as well. You get it. It's that time of year, right? But know that this is coming soon. So that Holy Week and some ideas for Easter Sunday. Now, the reason why I do ideas for Easter Sunday is because you have a choice. You can end the series on Easter Sunday, or you can begin the Easter season series on Easter Sunday. And the Easter season series that I'm creating right now, called The Cup of Freedom, starts on Easter Sunday. So we will give you some ideas, but so many churches have beloved traditions for Easter morning that you should do those by all means, and then insert ideas from the series into your beloved traditions. And so we'll give you some ideas, but know that that's also coming. Communion liturgy, you saw that, and I use a very ecumenical standard, and you adapt as you need to for your denominational sensibilities. But it does incorporate that song from Mark Hayes as well as the Sanctus. All right, let's look at children's time. So this idea buckets came from my experience during lockdown and pandemic was that my bucket of delight was running out. I need to fill up my bucket. And so we've got buckets for every week and different things that we will be filling our buckets with, our bucket of meaning, curiosity, delight, connection, self-giving. And we made take-home worksheets that kids can take home, or you can use that in your Christian education on Sunday morning. Now, the theme song for the children's time as they come up and go back is What a wonderful world. Ah, I love it. So you want your pianist to sort of play that as they come up. And we've given you, you can either get the choral arrangement by Mark Hayes and pull out of that, or you can get the sheet music there. And then there's lots of things here. It will be self-evident. There'll be some emotions that you can make, and the prayer poem. I create a prayer poem, so it's a repeat after me poem that happens every week. Awesome God, we're here to say, awesome God, we're here to say, thank you for the world today. Thank you for the world today. What a gift in which to play. What a gift in which to play. Full of wonders on display. Full of wonders on display. All together now we say amen. So it is really fun. And as always, this is fully scripted. And so put it in your own words, tweak it as you need to. But the full meal deal is right there. Now, I excerpt little pieces from What a Wonderful World into the midst of each one. And they're just little excerpts because each little excerpt has to do with the word that we're on for the week. And so you could speak that, or you could sing it a cappella. And the reason I say a cappella, I mean, if you have a pianist that can just play that excerpt, that's fine. But some of it is right out of the middle. So sometimes it might just be easier to start, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Right. And then you would go on. And I guarantee you that people in the congregation, if you prompt them, will sing it with you, right? If you put those up on the screen, if you're using a screen. So there's buckets for every week. And there'll be different activities with every week. And you'll have a great time doing that. So awesome. 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 That word awesome is going to pop up quite a bit. All right. Sermon fodder, my friends. So the book, the little guided study that I wrote will also give you lots of sermon fodder because that's where I dip into some of the research about each one of these things. I've woven that with stories from my own life, journal pages, journal prompts, that kind of thing. I really had a wonderful time putting it together. It is likely the beginning of a larger work. So you're in on the first bit of it, but I'm very glad to have this out into the world. So read through that document. I have given you in each one a link to this guy, Jason Silva, who used to be the host of National Geographic's Brain Games. He has a YouTube channel called Shots of Awe. He is absolutely off the charts, energetic. He may not be your cup of tea, but he'll get you thinking. And he's a philosopher. He's not a Christian, he's a philosopher, but it really helped me sort of get kind of excited about the benefits of each one of these things. The major book, and I would highly recommend that you read this in preparation for the series. Dacher Keltner is the grandfather of theories, cognitive science theories about awe. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book. So I highly recommend that you go ahead, especially preachers, you go ahead, get that book, read through it. It will totally saturate you in all of the aspects of awe. And I show how those are connected to each one of these elements in my guided study. Okay, so preaching Jesus in awe. So the reason why I have not put gospel readings into the service is that when we're thinking about Jesus and all of these elements, we're looking more at what he did with his life as well as what he said. So how did he practice awe? How did he practice wonder? And then in each one of the weeks in the sermon fodder, we have Ben, our wonderful WDS customer service person, who's also a preacher, who also writes some of our sermon fodder, has talked about some of the exegesis around the Hebrew poets. And then I have a section on each one of these about how Jesus relates to this and how in his life and ministry he related to this. And then what I encourage you to do, preachers, is how does this show up for you in your understanding of Jesus? And tell that story in your sermon. So like in Wonder, I think I myself talk about how he said, consider the lilies of the field. Well, obviously, he did some considering of of nature, of the awe-filled creation, right? And so that's an example of saying, you know, Jesus himself marveled at creation in the way that he used these metaphors of nature, of different things. So I really want you to think, preacher, about how your relationship with Jesus and who Jesus was comes into play with all of these different elements. Okay, so that's the sermon fodder. Let's move on. Visual and media arts ideas, friends. Oh my goodness. I think you'll have a lot of fun putting things together. It'll be very different for each one of you. It's not like a ladder, you know, like a thing that that we give you a picture of, but find different ways to display vintage cameras if you have people that have vintage cameras, or even just one is fine. We have lots of different ideas about how to incorporate that anchor image, but also the idea of the photos and hanging. You might have those on the sidewalls and add to those every week and invite people to bring photos and add to those. Could be very interactive, wonderful thing. A photo booth might be fun to create, talking about the awesomeness of who we are as children of God. Polaroid cameras. There's just a lot of different ideas here. Table fabric, etc. We have some instructions for the time with children, those worksheet handouts, all of that. And then again, a photography group. Think about that. Creating a photography group. That's a wonderful way to have a spiritual practice related um, to that anchor image. Okay, so small group study suggestions. Friends, of course, I would love for you to use this guided journal for your small groups. And I will tell you how you can, the different versions of that you can use. But while we're here in this document, I just want to say that we also have links to some of the main works that I reference in that guided study. So if you have groups that like to dive deep into one thing, you might have a book study based on one of these books and it's just the material is just so much. And some of the best ones I have listed here. So if you have groups that really want to dive deep, we also have for preteens, teens, and young adults that have to do with awe and wonder and delight and lots of things. There's children's books that are perfect for this theme. New title that's coming soon. It won't come out in time for Lent. It's coming out in May. But this is a woman who has written a book for parents and teachers, How the Science of Wonder Helps Our Kids Thrive. And it's called Raising Awe Seekers. So this will be a wonderful follow-up to this series for your parents and teachers. More resources around photography groups. So lots of different ideas here. Okay. Oh, we're almost there. Thanks for hanging in, friends. So here, the guided study and short form pages. Let me show you what that is. So this is the guided study, the full version in digital PDF form. You could literally send your folks who are going to study it, whether independently, individually, or with small groups, you can literally send them the URL, right? And they can open it up and read it on their computer. That's one way you can get this to them. All right, so here, let me just make it a little, there we go. All right, so that's there, and that's available to you. Anybody who has purchased the series, subscribers, you have access to it in that form. Now, we also have a short form journal that is a PDF that is shorter because the longer one is 80 some pages, and you might not want to make booklets of 80 some pages on your own. So we have also done a short form that you could do. You could either print out the whole thing, make a booklet, or you could just print out 2 front and back pages every week and give those as handouts to people, right? Because each one has my thoughts on Jesus and beauty. And the reason I did this, friends, is because the larger work that I did is going to serve a purpose beyond this series, and it's an interfaith purpose. So I did not include my thoughts on Jesus and beauty in the main work. It's Hebrew poets, it is researchers, it's mystics that I include there. But you also have what I call the Jesus pages. Anecdotally, that's not called that in the series, but Jesus and beauty. And so again, my thoughts about how Jesus related to beauty, some scripture, journal pages for people to journal with a link to the pages in the larger guided study that people could go. So you could print this out, but they could also go to that digital version and read the whole chapter if they wanted to. The mystic quote, and then an awe practice. So this is beauty. So 9 beautiful things. This is what you would give to people on Ash Wednesday or on Lent 1. And that is to set about 15 minutes before going to bed to think about 9 beautiful things that happened during the day. 3 of each in 3 different categories. So that's an awe practice. And this is from a researcher who actually did the work to research folks who did this and found that their well-being went up significantly if they spent time doing this every day. And so that is that connection between well-being and these practices of awe. So that's what those short form are, so that you can reproduce those. We also have that in a word form. Uh, um, Yes, word form. There it is. So that you can put whatever you want to in it and adapt that if you want to. Put your logo on it, whatever. The long form, the guided study, is not available in our usual word form because that is actually a written work by me. And so because it's a longer form, we're not going to allow you to adapt that, of course, because it's just a larger work. So that's a little bit different this time than some of our other ones. So A Year of Awe is a document that invites you to consider, as a result of this series, some monthly activities that your church could do and invite the greater community to these practices of awe as a community. So I have given you lots of examples of what's happening around this around the world. And I'm not going to go through all of these, you can read for yourself, but just to give you a couple of examples, the Offline Club, this is started in the Netherlands. And so it is a regular time for, and it's lots of young people, lots of millennials do this. They check their phones at the door, they come in, and for a few hours, they get to have some offline time, right? Connecting, and they curate it so there's some individual time, some community time. There's game playing, there's journaling, there's arts and crafts, there's lots of different things. But it's just a way to create a community offline. A candlelight music event. Listening to music in candlelight, awe-inspiring. And we can do this, churches, we can do it. So group singing events where people get to sing together. That is one of the, you'll read in my book, that is one of the most incredible ways to create what's called collective effervescence, which has huge benefits for our well-being, for our connectedness to others. Literally happening biologically inside of us has benefits. And so just really you will enjoy looking at these different examples of how that happens and imagining if you could do that yourself. A percussion circle, this is also a wonderful way of feeling synced up with others. A lot of these things are an antidote to loneliness, and really important that we do this. So different trips, different ways to create community. And so that is there for you. And I hope you become purveyors of awe. That is the point. Purveyors of awe for your community. So of course the trailer and the logo. So friends, one last thing, and that is I want to leave you with just a little bit more about the book. It is right now available to purchase on Amazon, although that is not the final version. It's a draft version that we were using to make sure it was going to work. We have a final version that will be available for you, I would say early next week. Don't buy multiple copies for your study groups until early next week. You'll get them in plenty of time, but early next week check again and it should be ready to purchase, and you can get actual physical books. Oh, I don't know. I have this background and so it's not. Let's see. There we go. There it is. We have the actual physical book. Now, we are also doing that through Barnes and Noble. We're having a little bit of an issue with Barnes and Noble, just getting it uploaded, but hopefully by early next week that will also be there, because I know some of you are choosing not to use Amazon at this moment. So either use the digital download, the link for people to study online on their devices, and or buy this copy so that they have that in their hands. And those are available at $10 each, so it should be easy to just have people pitch in for their copies and maybe just do a bulk order for your folks. So finally, and I'll take some questions just after this. Friends, the neurobiology of empathy is tied to awe. And part of the research that I'm talking about, I'm a neuroscience geek. My PhD was based in it, in the neurobiology of ritual and what's happening in our bodies during ritual. And so the benefits of these awe practices, wonder, beauty, meaning, connection, delight, curiosity, these have real implications for our physical bodies, for the well-being, our social, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being. And I think all of those things actually, physical, social, emotional, mental, equal spiritual well-being. And so that's why I am very tuned in to what we are learning about the benefits of all of these things. And I think that our churches are called to help with the well-being of our greater communities, whether they come to our church or not. And with the increasing numbers of people who don't come to our church, if we can figure out how to reach out and help with the well-being, of course, physical well-being and all the things that I know you already do, clothing, shelter, food, but also the spiritual well-being. So the neurobiology of empathy is tied to awe. We all have the capacity for that, but we have to stay tuned in order to turn on that empathetic kinds of processes in our brains. And if there's anything we need more of right now, it's empathy. In 1935, this is the last two paragraphs from my guided study. And it's the core of what I believe about the connection to our call as Christians. In 1935, Albert Einstein said, "The fairest thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. He who knows it not and can no longer wonder, no longer feel amazement, is as good as dead, a snuffed out candle. Death can happen in many ways, including a kind of walking dead state of numbness to the awe that exists, both in extraordinary events and in the everyday, in the ordinary, all around us. There is much today that seeks to deaden our ability to thrive, when basic needs are not only disregarded but destroyed by policies that bolster the already privileged to the demise of the vulnerable, when fear maxes out our nervous systems such that the greatest percentage of doctors' visits are related to mental health. That's a fact. When we are duped into believing that protecting our own is the only way to survive, the freedom to wonder, to delight, and to connect in meaningful ways is harmed." But the cradle that Einstein talked about there, where artists and scientists work, is alive and well, as we have seen. And they are urging us to awaken and to heal through practices of awe that, despite the movement to extinguish our candles, can renew our love for the life we've been given and spur us with the energy for making this world a better place. The elements of curating a life of spiritual depth, beauty, wonder, meaning, curiosity, delight, connection, and self-giving are essential to sustaining our ability to work for the very survival of our species. all who inhabit this planet and the planet itself that we call home. We must become purveyors of awe, practicing for ourselves and encouraging others. We must curate conditions for well-being by adding to our caring repertoire not only the basics of sustenance for the physical bodies of our fellow humans, but also the capacity for awe that keeps our candles lit. So, friends, I pray that you will keep your candles lit, that you will invite others to become alive through these practices of awe in this Lent season. I am so grateful for all you are and all you do. And I hope you will join me in this effort of inviting people into well-being through practices of awe. I think that Jenna finally got back on to internet. I think she had to drive to get there. Jenna, I'm so sorry. I think she had an outage in her area. Oh my gosh. And so she is in some public place now.
That's
Wow.
right.
Might as well, 10th anniversary of fully scripted series, might as well have, technical difficulties because, that's the world we live in. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at any questions. We did answer some questions beforehand about other series, but if there are any that you can see um, about purveyors of all, let's go ahead and entertain those before we say goodbye.
I actually lost my chat history when I rejoined the webinar. So anyone, this is your chance to send us those questions through the chat and we'll get them answered before we have to go. And if you can't think of anything now, but you do later, you can send us an email to marcia@marciamcphee.com and I will put that in the chat.
That's great. Now, I am seeing in the Q&A, I can see some. So, is the Holy Week experience created for a specific day of Holy Week? Would it work best Good Friday or another day, or does that matter? Does not matter. You will decide that. You will also decide if you want to split it. If you're going to do it as a service in the sanctuary, you could split that up and do the first part of it on Maundy Thursday and the second part of it on Good Friday, because it does work itself through the week, right? Connected to these. You can also do it as a come and go through the whole Triduum, right? So the Triduum is Thursday night through Saturday or through Sunday morning, and you could have hours. And so if it's a walkthrough kind of thing, you could simply have hosts who were, hosting the space so people could come through anytime. So you are going to be able to figure that out yourself, what's going to work best for your community. You might do that walkthrough kind of thing in addition to some more traditional services that you might do at your church, like a tenebrae and that kind of thing. So you really are going to get to figure out and curate your own experience of awe. Let's see. Have you given any thought to creating a retreat format for this material? Yes, yes, yes. So yes, so a couple of things. I am creating for myself a day-long retreat that I will offer to as like clergy day apart renewal kinds of things. It doesn't have to be just clergy, but right now that's I'm talking to various conferences who do clergy day apart kinds of things for well-being. And so that is going to become a thing in the next year of awe, the year of awe. But out of that, I will also, and I will tell you that it will follow the book that I have put together pretty closely. Um, and so I will be creating for you all to do that kind of day-long retreat or half-day retreat, whatever you want to do. But yes, that is a great idea. Says, I can see this as a great opportunity to offer something outside of the worship setting and beyond this season for the nuns and duns. Yes, absolutely. And that's what I mean by being a purveyor of awe that reaches out to the wider community. You might not even have it in your church. You might create it somewhere else, right? That's a little less intimidating for those who wouldn't normally feel, would question kind of walking into a church. And also know that we will be, after Lent is over, we will be tweaking this series so that it can be an anytime series. So those of you who don't use it for Lent, you might consider it as summer. I mean, it could be any time during ordinary time. So we will be tweaking that as soon as we get our heads up out of the water for Lent, Holy Week, and Easter season. Um, and then we will be tweaking for any time. All right. Um, okay. Okay. I'm just going to look at the chat really quick. Some great ideas here. So yes, I will tell you the longest table. Somebody posted about the longest table. Our church did that, and the tables went all down the street. I write about it in the book because we're about to do that with our 100th anniversary of our neighborhood block. And so we're going to put tables all down the middle of our block to celebrate the houses, all the houses turning 100 years old. It's just so important that we make connections. This is an age where the antidote to that which tries to divide us is to continue to find ways to connect. And this, I think, is one of the most important things. All right. Anything else? Jenny, see anything else?
I did see a note that came through that said, please reach out to the powers that be with the West Virginia conference. Specifically was requested about that 1-day retreat, but we should
Yes.
definitely let folks know when that's available.
Yes. So any of you are hearing this that would like for it to happen, whenever you get the chance to put a bug in somebody's ear on your regional leadership, we're happy to take those requests. So that will be coming soon, that we will be scheduling some of those things. Oh, friends, thank you to all of you who hung out with me this whole time. Thank you for understanding this need to connect both what's happening for Lent on a bigger scale with our Get Ready webinar, and know that we'll be posting the recording really soon. And friends, you know that you can email us at any time if you have further questions. You can post those things on the website. And those of you who are Worship Design Studio subscribers and have done our series before, you know that the website is a great place to talk to each other about ideas that you have. What are you planning? What are you doing? It's talk about connecting. We have to stay connected. It can feel very isolating sometimes. Ministry can, and I know all of you know that. So let's stay connected. Many blessings, friends, and thanks for spending our anniversary 10th year celebration together. Many blessings on your Lent and in all of your endeavors. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.